And so over the years, since the president's executive order, 744,000 young people have come forward. Their lives are amazing. I've told their stories over and over again. Imagine, if you will, that you lived in fear of being deported tomorrow, or fear that your family would be broken up, how that would weigh on you as a young person. And they did something that was maybe rash in the eyes of their parents, but heroic in my eyes. They stepped forward out of the shadows and said, if the United States of America has set legal standards for us to follow, to stay here, we will comply with them. Their parents warned them, their friends warned them. You're turning yourself in. You're telling this government who you are, and where they can find you. But they did it anyway. And I encouraged them to do it, and many did as well, saying, if you show, again, good faith in this country, good faith in this government, I'll do everything in my power to make sure it isn't used against you. Well, now we've reached a new stage in our history with a new president coming, with different views on immigration than the outgoing president. And my concern, and the concern shared by millions across America, is what's going to happen to these young kids? 744,000 of them who are currently in college, in high school, currently in professional schools like medical schools and law schools. They're doing amazing things with their lives, and yet things could happen immediately that change their status. I've talked to a number of my colleagues on the floor on both sides of the aisle about this, and there are pretty strong emotions in favor of helping these young people. One of the leaders on this has been my friend and ally in immigration issues, on some immigration issues, and that's Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina. He and I talked about introducing legislation that would give a temporary stay so that these young people could be protected until Congress does its work and comes up with an immigration bill that addresses this issue and many more. Senator Graham and I discussed it again this morning, and we hope to even have this bill ready before we leave next week. A bipartisan effort to say to the new president, give these young people a fighting chance. At least protect them until we've had a chance to act on the larger immigration issues before us. I hope that colleagues on both sides will join us. There's been a lot of talk about what the next Congress will look like and what we will do, how we'll tackle the biggest issues of our time. The Affordable Care Act, for example, which I was proud to support, is clearly controversial. There wasn't a single Republican senator who voted for it, and some want to repeal it and replace it. Some are suggesting we'll repeal it, but do it with 2 years in advance, so that you would say 2 years from now there might be a new Affordable Care Act, and that puts us in a responsible position of coming up with an alternative in that period of time. I don't know if that's how this will end, this conversation, but I would suggest the same logic could apply when it comes to immigration. At least give us the time to come up with an alternative on immigration, and during that period of time, let us protect these young people. The stories I've told on the floor say more about this issue than any words that I can express, and I want to tell another one of those stories this morning, and this one is about a young man from Illinois. His name is Asael Reyes. Here's his picture. He's got his University of Illinois Chicago t-shirt on. He's an interesting young man. He came to the United States at the age of 5, brought here from Mexico. He grew up on the north side of Chicago. He was a bright young man, but he learned he was undocumented early in life. And he really got despondent over the thought that he could lose everything and have to be forced to leave America. His classes were a challenge to him, and with this fear in his mind, he started doing very poorly. In fact, he dropped out of high school. And he said it just weighed heavily on his mind that he might have to leave. He said, I felt that because of my status, I had no future. As a result, my grades and attendance plummeted, and I struggled to do anything productive. Then in 2012, President Obama announced DACA. Everything changed for Asael Reyes. Here's how he explains it. DACA meant that I had a future worth fighting for. And because of that, I returned to school and reignited my passion for studying. Because of DACA, I want to do whatever I can do to contribute to my country. When Asael says my country, he means the United States of America. It's the only country he's ever known. In his senior year in high school, this young man turned his life around because of DACA. He improved his grades. He was active in his community. He was head of his school's fundraising committee, and he volunteered in a mentoring program. He worked full-time to support himself and his family. You see, young people like him, undocumented, don't qualify for any federal assistance to go to college. If you want to go to college, you've got to pay for it. And for most of them, it means working pretty hard to come up with the money to do it. Today, Asael is in his sophomore year in the Honors College at the University of Illinois at Chicago. He's a double major in psychology and political science, and he has a perfect 4.0 grade point average. Talk about a turnaround. He's involved with student government, leads a recreational bike club called College of Cycling. Every week he delivers food from the college dining halls on bike to a local homeless shelter. This effort has inspired other student groups to start similar initiatives. He mentors middle school students. He's the youngest board member of the Erie Neighborhood House, a place that I've visited many times. That's a social service agency that provides assistance to low-income families in the city of Chicago. In addition to all this, he works part-time as a security guard at local events like the Cubs baseball game and Bears football games. Asael dreams of working in the Chicago city government someday. He says, quote, "I have a passion for my city, and I feel an obligation to do whatever I can to make it great by serving this community." One story out of 744,000. Will America be better if Asael Reyes is given his chance to stay here, to make this a better nation? Of course it will. This young man who at an early age was able to do a turnaround just on the hope that someday he might be able to live in this country legally. There's so many stories just like him.